So how to interpret the reserve fund study. Most important things to take a look at as you're reviewing it is what is the current balance or the balance as of the last fiscal year, and how does it compare to the budget? Or taking a look at your reserve fund, maybe it's 3 years old now. The reserve fund will have a predicted kind of opening and closing balance for 3 years out. How does that number that's predicted in the reserve fund study compare to your actual reserve bank balance? If it's close, that's awesome. That means that you're kind of on schedule, you're doing a bit of capital replacement along the way. You are spending some of the reserve, you are contributing what you should be. That's ideal. There's way more in the reserve than you expected. That's a bit of a red flag too. It means that probably you haven't done any of the capital replacement that was scheduled over the last 3 years. And maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe you planned or you saw that it didn't need to be replaced, and so you deferred it or kicked it down the road a little bit further. But maybe it was just, I don't know, you hadn't really looked at what was coming up or assessed it, and just years went by and you didn't do some of the capital replacement or replacement that was scheduled in that reserve. So good idea to take a look at that. And then if it's way under, now it's like, why is it way under? Did we have a large capital project? Was the capital project that we did it cost more than expected? Was it actually way more expensive than what was budgeted by the reserve fund provider in that reserve study? And then last, now if you have that shortfall, how big a shortfall, and should we start looking into some more reserve planning and are fee increases necessary? Reserve contributions, you should understand what the reserve contributions are today, and especially when the fresh reserve study has been prepared, but also be looking at it for what are the projected increases in the next 2, 3 years, out 10 years. How is that going to look and how does that compare? And then finally, is there a planned special assessment, and what is the per unit amount? When is it? If there is, you should probably, be talking to the owners, if you're the condo board or the property manager, talk about them, informing them ahead of time, making sure that everyone's planned and preparing for it, knows that it's coming up in 3 to 5 years or whenever that is. I'm going to show you an actual reserve study now and kind of go over these kind of main concepts. And so the most important part of your whole reserve study when you're looking at it is um, the required annual contribution based on this model was determined to be 44,500 starting January 1st, 2026. And increases in annual contribution should follow as shown below. And so then you come into your main forecast, and you can see that in year one, $44,000 is what's recommended. That's based on this funding plan. The blue is your expected bank balances, the green is the expenditures. And so you can see this is staying above zero the whole time. Right here in this first 10 years, looks like there's actually quite a bit of capital replacement, and you're not starting with a huge closing balance. And so you can see it starts at 44,000, and then it's recommending pretty large jumps in funding each year. So almost 15% from year one to year two. So starting 44,500, jumping all the way to 51,000. And then another 13% jumping to 57,000, 64,000. And so as it's going down, you can see that in from years 1 to 10, it goes from $44,000 total contribution to $103,000 total contribution. But the interesting thing here is that then in year 11, you get past this higher capital replacement period of time. And so it actually reduces. So from year 10 to year 11, it comes back down to $70,000 then. Um, and then starts to climb at rate of inflation, which we pegged as 2.5% going forward. So, and in here, there's no special assessments for this particular study. It's just very aggressive fee increases. And likely, if you saw this report come in and thought these fee increases were too aggressive, you could also come back and ask your reserve provider, hey, these are a little bit too aggressive. Could we consider maybe a hybrid? Put a $50,000 special assessment in year two and a $50,000 special assessment in year six, and keep our fees closer to $40,000 or $50,000. those are things that can be requested at time of revision. So as you're working with your reserve fund provider, you should be reviewing that study, identifying, I guess, especially reviewing this table and potentially requesting if you'd like to see different funding models or you'd like to inquire about a special assessment. And even I guess if you're considering a condo loan, then that may be something that can be worked into the budget so that you have a better understanding of it as well. Um, the other thing that we have in these studies is each component has a description, up to 3 images. It will explain the square footage of deck. So there's 580 total square feet of deck in this particular property. It talks about the maintenance and replacement costs, gives some condition assessments and remaining life. And every component will have that. So there's 205 linear feet of wood, etc. Gives recommendations, everything else. And then we'll skip past this section and get into this. This is your replacement table. So it's going to tell you the expected life of every one of these components. It's going to talk about how much it would cost if you replaced it today. This doesn't have inflation applied to it. It's just what it would cost if you replaced it today. None of these are expected, well, very few of these are expected to be replaced in 2026. And so you can see that rolls through. And then we also differentiate between maintenance life. So say with a deck, especially a wood deck, then it's got, the replacement cost in 2041, but it's also got some like painting, staining, maintenance type budgets allocated, just so there's some funds for it in between. And then finally, it gets into the big table, which just runs all the years, all the components, basically looks like a spreadsheet, talks about the expenditures, total expenditures in each year, and then how the opening and closing balances are calculated with the contributions, maybe an expected interest rate that you could earn on that, and it runs forward. We do ours in 10-year increments, so 1 to 10, 11 to 20, and 21 to 30. Um, as you're reviewing, as you get out into years 20 to 30, thing is, by the time you get out to year 20, you will have had 3 more reserve fund studies prepared. So it's most critical that you worry about the next 10 years, especially the first next 5 years, because those are the years that the reserve fund specifically is addressing and that you need to fund for. And then 6 through 10 are super important as well, because those are the ones that may deteriorate faster than expected and drift into the next 5 years and therefore may end up as budgets in the next 5 years prior to your next reserve study being written.